My name is Raymond Holbrook, and I'm 45 years old. 3 months ago, I was worth nearly $7 million. I owned a successful plumbing supply business, lived in a 6-bedroom colonial house, and had 2 kids in college. Today, I'm about to tell you how losing everything led me to discover something that changed my entire life. When my ex-wife Veronica and her lawyer boyfriend stripped me of everything and laughed in my face, I thought I had nothing left to live for. But sometimes, the darkest storms wash up the most unexpected treasures. Was it really that easy, Ray? Veronica sneered, her voice cutting through the courthouse murmur. She stood there, wrapped in the arm of Dennis Caulfield, a man whose custom-tailored suit probably cost more than my first delivery van. 20 years, and you never saw the knife coming. Dennis gave a thin, professional smile. Just business, Raymond. Well, personal business now, I suppose. Their laughter was a cold, sharp sound that seemed to suck all the warmth from the air. I stood frozen, wearing a suit that was now my only one, watching them walk away with my entire world, the business I'd built with my own hands, the home where my children grew up, every dollar I'd ever saved, even the respect of my twins, Mason and Sophia, who were now convinced I was a monster. 3 months later, I was down to my last $1,000, holed up in a studio apartment where the smell of stale curry and despair was a permanent fixture. It was there, sorting through a forgotten storage unit of my father's things, that I found it. Tucked inside a battered shoebox labeled, "For Raymond," was a faded blue passbook from First National Trust, dated the year I was born. My grandfather, a man who'd worked the same factory line for 40 years, had opened it with a $50 deposit. It was a relic, a gesture from a different time. I figured I'd close it, maybe treat myself to a steak dinner for the first time in months. But when the bank teller's face went pale, when she called her manager over with trembling hands, I knew this was more than just $50. The manager, a man named Theodore Grayson, led me to his office. "Mr. Holbrook," he said, his voice hushed. "This account, it's been gaining compound interest since 1960. He turned the monitor. The number on the screen made my legs give way. Veronica and Dennis thought they had broken me. They had no idea they'd merely cleared the ground for a miracle my grandfather had planted the day I was born. To understand how far I fell, you need to know who I was. Holbrook Plumbing Supplies began in a drafty Queens garage in 2004. I was 25 with a business degree, a pregnant wife, and a fire in my belly. I'd kiss Veronica's growing stomach and head out before dawn, sorting pipes and fittings until my knuckles were raw. "You're going to kill yourself, Ray," she'd say, massaging my shoulders at our kitchen table. "The babies need a father, not a ghost." Those babies, Mason and Sophia, arrived during a howling snowstorm. Holding them, I swore they'd never know the pinch of insecurity the way I had. My grandfather, Eugene, had been a Chrysler assemblyman. My father, a hospital maintenance supervisor. Good, honest work that never quite stretched to the end of the month. By the time the twins were 10, my business had exploded. We occupied a 15,000-square-foot warehouse. My brother Tommy ran the delivery fleet. My cousin Frank handled the big accounts. Over eggs at Murphy's Diner, my accountant, Walter, would smile. "Ray, you've built something special here," he'd say, spreading reports across the table. The numbers didn't lie. Landing the Brennan construction account was the tipping point. Revenue soared. The house in Westchester was Veronica's dream 6 bedrooms, a pool, a kitchen she redesigned every few years. She quit her job as a dental hygienist to manage our social presence. "The country club is where the real connections are made, Ray," she'd insist. She wasn't entirely wrong. Deals did happen there. But I was always too busy in the warehouse to attend. Veronica went to the luncheons, the galas. That's where Dennis Caulfield's name started popping up. "He handles all the high-net-worth divorces," she mentioned one night. "Made partner at 35. I barely registered it. My days started at 5 a.m. and ended at 8 p.m. Saturdays were for paperwork. Sundays, the one day for family, were often interrupted by some work emergency. "Dad's always working," I once overheard Sophia tell a friend. The word stung, but I told myself it was for them. The business would be their legacy. The cracks started to show. Veronica stayed out later, her eyes growing distant. Our bedroom feeling more like a shared hotel room. I told myself we were building an empire. I didn't see she was plotting its surrender. The day it all crumbled was a Tuesday, our 22nd anniversary. I left work early, a bouquet of roses on the passenger seat, a reservation at the French restaurant where I'd proposed. The first thing I saw was Dennis's black BMW in my driveway. The second was our drawn bedroom curtains. I didn't storm in. I just sat in my truck for 3 hours, watching him leave, watching Veronica wave from the doorway in the silk robe I'd bought her. When I finally went inside, she was humming at the stove. "You're late," she said, not turning around. "You could have called." The divorce papers came the next morning, right in the middle of a staff meeting. The accusations were a work of fiction. Abandonment, hidden assets, infidelity. Dennis had constructed a masterpiece of legal poison. In his office for the first meeting, Veronica sat beside him in a new suit, refusing to meet my eye. "My client has suffered for years," Dennis began, his voice slick with false sympathy. He produced journals, photos, affidavits from country club members, all lies. "Veronica, tell them," I pleaded. Her gaze was icy. "The only lie was pretending this marriage mattered," she said. My lawyer, Paul, was outmatched. They even went after custody of my adult twins, twisting the law for more support. Judge Brennan, a man I'd voted for, nodded along to every one of Dennis's points. The final ruling was a slaughter. Veronica got the house, the business, the savings, everything. I was left with the clothes on my back and an old Honda. In my $800 a month studio, the poverty was bad, but the invisibility was worse. Former employees crossed the street to avoid me. My own brother, Tommy, could only meet me in secret, terrified Veronica would fire him. "She watches everything," he whispered. My bank account dwindled. My kids wouldn't speak to me. The isolation was absolute. The day I found the passbook, I was at rock bottom. At the Chase branch, the young teller, Patricia, looked confused, then shocked. She fetched her manager, Mr. Grayson. In his office, he explained it wasn't just a savings account. It was a Century Growth account with compound interest locked in for 45 years. "The account became available to you when you turned 45, he said. He turned the screen. The balance was over $4 million. But that wasn't all. My grandfather had also instructed the bank to buy $100 of shares in a company called Berkshire Hathaway in 1965. Those shares were now worth over $8 million. Taped to the passbook was a note in his careful script. "Raymond, if you're reading this, life has thrown you a storm. I was a simple man, but I learned a few things. Time is a greater treasure than money. What is hidden cannot be stolen. And a man who seems to have nothing often holds the winning card. Trust no one completely. Never show all your cards, son. Never." He'd known that the flashy wealth I built could be taken, so he built a hidden fortress for me instead. Veronica and Dennis's forensic accountants had been so thorough, they never looked for a seed planted before I was born. I didn't celebrate. I went back to my studio and my ramen. I met with Arthur Blackstone, a legal legend, and, ironically, Dennis's former mentor. "I've been waiting for the right case to teach that boy a lesson," Arthur said. His investigation uncovered it all. The kickbacks between Dennis and Judge Brennan, the fake forensic accountant, Veronica's multiple affairs. We filed for fraud, judicial misconduct, and racketeering. The day Dennis was let out of his office in handcuffs was the day I moved out of that apartment. Judge Brennan was arrested hours later. The news channels feasted on the story. Veronica called me, screaming, "What did you do? You had nothing." "I had nothing you could see," I said calmly. The divorce was overturned. I got my business, my house, and what was left of my money back. Mason and Sophia came to me, heartbroken, realizing they'd been fed lies. "She showed us so much proof," Sophia cried. I held them. "You were victims too," I told them. I sold the business not long after. With my grandfather's gift, I had more than enough, but I live simply now in a modest house. I started the Eugene Holbrook Foundation, teaching financial literacy to working-class families. I tell them about the factory worker who understood money better than any billionaire. I teach them that time, not a big salary, is the most powerful force for building wealth. Veronica works as a receptionist now. Dennis was disbarred and went to prison. Judge Brennan joined him. I keep my grandfather's photo on my desk. When young hotshots come in talking about their fast money, I point to it. This man turned $50 into over $12 million. I tell them, not with flashy deals, but with patience. Every night I read his note. Never show all your cards. He was right. The greatest power is the move nobody sees coming, the quiet strength you hold in reserve until the moment you lay it down and change everything.